Hey everybody, it's Micah. So today, as you can see, I'm outside. I'm actually testing my light outdoors. Recently, I told you that I got some batteries for my light, which means that I can take it outside to any place where I don't have a plug and I can use it. So I wanted to test it today because, as I said, for my video project, I want to go to Taku and kind of use the place that I work in, the city that I work in, as an environment for the show that I want to make. So I'm testing the power of this particular light. There are a lot of challenges that people face when they're trying to light outdoors. The problem with lighting outdoors is that the sun is such a bright source of light that it usually creates high contrast scenes that are difficult to deal with for the average person. The average person, they have a camera, but they don't really know what to do about high. Like, if you have the sun in the background, a photographer will tell you that you'll never get a good shot with that kind of strong backlight. You have to have a strong light in front of you to fill up the shadows to combat the brightness of the sun. So typically outdoor scenes are very difficult to take pictures in, and it's even harder to take pictures in. It's not pictures. It's even more difficult to take video outdoors, because in order to take good video, you have to use a slower shutter speed than you usually would when taking pictures, and that means that the sun will the exposure on the picture will be in the video will be much brighter than you want it to be. It'll be washed out. It'll be all white. So typically what you have to do in that situation is give your camera a pair of sunglasses. It's called an ND filter, a neutral density filter. Basically sunglasses for your camera's lens. And once you put that on, then it makes the scene much darker, and it will make the picture much darker. But now you're combating the sun's brightness, and then you have then you add another light, like this one here, that's on me. So with this light, I'm combating. If I don't have the light on, I just turn it around. You can see that it's very dark. My face is dark, but the background is, mostly pretty well exposed. Maybe slightly underexposed. I'm trying to underexpose it a little bit just to test things out. I can boost the brightness in post, but with this light, I can light up my face, and I can make a pleasant image with this light. Now, one problem I have with this particular light, and you can tell this is kind of a geeky video for me, so it's going to be a little bit boring for people who aren't interested in the camera stuff. The problem with this light is that first, it's not as bright as I wish it were. And the reason it's not very bright is because it actually has two, it can change you can change the warmth levels of the light, but the way that the way you change the warmth levels, I'm gonna say there are two sets of LEDs on the. Let me see if you can. And you can't really see it. There are actually two sets of LEDs on this panel. One is a daylight color, and one is a warmer color. And what that means is that if you want to have only daylight colors, then you're gonna decrease the amount of power coming out of the light by half. So you're halving the amount of light that you're getting from it by by having only one or the other color. But if you mix the colors, then it makes it more difficult to keep the colors of the scene looking pleasant. So for example, the background actually will appear a little bit bluer than it actually is, because I have these warm LEDs along with the daylight LEDs, and because they're both on at full power, I'm getting a little bit more warmth in the light than I would really like to have. And so I can adjust the camera settings to make my face look a little bit better, but then that makes the background look a little bit unnaturally blue. And especially today, it's a cloudy day, so the light is bluer because of the cloud cover. So overall, I like the light, but it has some downsides that I have to kind of work with. The nice thing is that it is a cloudy day, which means that it's probably more ideal conditions for taking a video, because the light is not as bright. The camera settings don't have to be, how can I say, I have a little bit more flexibility in the camera settings, and I also have more flexibility with the light. Actually, this light might not be good enough in full daylight. It might only be useful on cloudy days. I'm not sure. I'm actually under a roof of a small, I don't know what that is called, a veranda, I don't know. But so I have a lot of things working for me in this particular space, but I'm not sure if this light will be useful in a nice, bright, sunny day. So we'll test that on another day. What else? Oh yeah. So for this video project that I'm working on, I'm thinking about getting a lav mic, a lavalier mic. So another challenge that you face with video that you don't face with pictures is audio. So to make a good video, you have to have good audio too. That's an extra layer of complexity that you don't have to deal with when you're only making photos. And one of the challenges, especially outdoors, is that you have to deal with wind. So you probably are already hearing some wind from outside, and it's not a particularly windy day. It's a little bit windy, but not super windy. But if it were very windy, you probably would have a very difficult time hearing me, and it'd be very distracting. So usually for microphones that are used outdoors, they will have I think it's called a balloon. Basically, you have a kind of shell that you put around the microphone, and then you put a kind of a foam or a furry screen around that, so that you have this foam or furry stuff covering the microphone, and that will reduce the amount of wind getting through to the microphone. And then you add that extra space, that layer out that kind of insulates the microphone from whatever little bit of wind comes in. So usually you have to have some special equipment to record audio outdoors, or else you have terrible audio. But I don't have that, and it's expensive, so I'm not gonna buy it. But a workaround for that would be to use those lavalier mics. Those are the mics, sometimes they're called pin mics. So anytime, you probably have seen people have microphones clipped onto their clothing, and those are lavalier mics. And the nice thing about lavalier mics is that you need special equipment to cover the microphone, but it's a much smaller microphone, so you can just buy some fuzzy stuff to put over the microphone, and you don't have to worry about it. You can clip it on the inside of clothing, and that separation from the wind through your clothing and also through that bit of foam, a little bit of cotton foam or whatever. And you can get rid of wind noise, or mostly get rid of wind noise. And it would also open up a lot of other creative options for me. For example, right now, the camera is very close to me. I can touch it. It's very close. But if I wanted to record myself speaking from far away, the microphone that I have here wouldn't work. And because it's connected to the camera. And if I disconnected it from the camera and connected it to an outside audio recorder, it would be in the video. It would be very difficult to hide this microphone and the external recorder. So it would be just like this weird thing in the video that I wouldn't want. And plus, I would have to deal with moving around and causing the touching, the rubbing noise on the microphone. So it'd just be a real big hassle to use this microphone in any other situation other than this kind of situation where I'm very close to the microphone. So the lavalier mic clipped onto my clothing, connected to an external recorder clipped onto my body somewhere, would allow me to record audio close to me, even if I'm far away from the camera. Even if I'm far away from the camera, it will still give you very nice audio quality. You just have to kind of synchronize the audio in the recorder with the whatever the movement of the video, right? You have to sync them later in post, which adds a little bit of complexity to the post processing, but it does open up more creative options for making videos. So the nice thing is that there are cheap options for lavalier mics. So I'll probably end up getting one of the cheaper options just to start out, and then later on, if I end up doing a lot of these videos and it becomes useful for me, then I'll probably end up buying a nicer one later in the future. But I have to do a little bit of research to find the right cheap lavalier mic for me. Speaking of the video project, I'm having a hard time thinking of different things that I can do for the project. So last time I talked about doing a who is this kind of thing, and the challenge of doing who is this is that you have to show people, and if you don't have someone with you, then what you're doing is you're ending up showing just like flashcards or pictures on the screen. It's not very interesting. So I'm trying to think of how I can do a who is this kind of episode, but it's not something that I can do easily right away. I have to kind of think about it and maybe plan on doing that a little bit farther down the line. But instead, what I this week in my third grade classes, I was teaching how many, which is a much simpler grammar to teach, and it's also, I thought, would be much easier to make a video of, because you can just have many different things and then you can just count the things. How many, I thought, for example, ants, how many ants, and you could just try to get people to count how many ants or whatever. But it's difficult to think of a situation where you can consistently find, where I could consistently find many different things that would be interesting to look at and to count. I could count leaves on a tree, but that's who wants to count leaves on a tree? I don't know. That doesn't sound very interesting. There is an interesting idea that I have. I'm thinking of borrowing from Mario Party. There's a Mario Party game for the Nintendo Switch, and it has a interesting mini game where you can look at a scene and you kind of scroll back and forth through the scene, and there are lots of different characters moving around in the scene, and you have to count how many of a certain character is in the whole scene. And there are some characters running back and forth, and there's all this layering going on, and they're popping up and down, whatever. So it's very interesting. It's a very challenging game, especially if you're a child, and if you're in third grade and you have this game, and somebody's like, "How many dogs?" and you're like, "Whoa, geez, that's a lot." So it sounds like an interesting idea, but I'm not sure exactly how I could implement it in real life. Maybe I could make a scene where I scroll the camera sideways. I'm thinking of something like that, but it would be kind of difficult to do that, And even if you could do that, how interesting would it be? Like if I just have a bunch of balls and I say how many baseballs or how many basketballs, would that really be very interesting? I don't know. So I'm having a hard, I'm not a very creative person. I have a hard time thinking of these kind of ideas. So that's one of the main challenges that I'll face with this particular project, is really thinking of content ideas that I can implement easily and making it interesting for myself and for the students that will be watching it. So, still working things out, but so far I'm having fun. It's a cold day. My hands are a little bit cold, but it's fun to record here and do this video. 17 minutes, okay. Just to let you know that building behind me, that is called New Otani, and that's where I'll be holding my wedding ceremony in March. So, just a little bit of trivia. It's very close to where I live. It's about a 5-minute walk from where I live. And the shrine that I'll have my wedding ceremony at is like maybe 5 more minutes in that direction. So everything's happening very close to me. Oh yeah, one last thing before I go. Just want to make it quick. I printed I have that project that Takai and I are working on, printing large photos and hanging them in the office. And the large print that we made was finished recently, so we went and picked it up from the store, and we posted it. We hung it up in the office. But there are a couple of things that I noticed about it, so I'll just kind of evaluate the quality of it. One, it has a different kind of paper. There are many different kinds of paper, and the kind of paper that it has is a very glossy paper, whereas the pictures that Takai and I printed have a semi kind of matte texture. And so when you look at it, you'll see that reflections from the light inside the office will kind of have a weird shimmering effect on the glossy large print, but have no such effect going on with the smaller prints that have the slightly matte finish. So overall, I really much prefer the quality of the texture of the photos that we printed ourselves. But the colors are quite nice. It was my first time printing with this company, so I didn't know exactly how the print would turn out. So it ended up being a little bit strong color-wise. In our little experiment printing our prints, we found that we had to kind of boost the contrast and the not just contrast, but we had to boost the colors on the photos that we printed, because the photos would get kind of a little bit compared to the computer screen, they were a little bit more dull. So we boosted the color for all 3 of the photos, and we found that the larger print that we printed with an outside company it feels a little bit bright, especially the blues really stand out. And also it demonstrates one of the downsides of the camera that I have. I had a kind of a high ISO on the camera when I was taking the photo that we printed large, and what that means is when you look close at the photo, it's much more noisy. It has noise that you don't see in the smaller prints, and that's partially because it's a larger print, and so the resolution, the difference in resolution between the smaller print and the larger print means that you're gonna see any problems of noise more easily in the larger print. Oh, I almost have to go. Anyway, I'll show you some photos, some pictures, and I'll also have some video of those photos in this video, so you'll be able to see that. Anyway, I think that's it for today, and I will see you next time.